Bonjour. It's the FB Premier League show. We've got some fixtures to review, and we're going to do a double round of predictions because it's Christmas, and we're not going to squeeze in a Christmas Day podcast.
Yeah, I've had to delay this episode a little bit on in the week just because I've been ill, but hopefully I'll be
Yeah,
good enough to
Tristan's
provide
still
some.
sniffling, so that's nice for the
Yeah,
listeners.
I'll try and I'll keep it to a minimum for the podcast. But yeah, oh, okay, maybe not. I just sniffled. But yeah, let's get started. Well, should we go over what were the league tables in terms of our prediction points before this
So,
last weekend
going
and
into the week,
at the
it
end?
was 51-60
Okay.
to you. So it's kind of like that gap has basically existed the entire time, really. Sometimes you gain a point, sometimes I gain a point, but it's just
Yeah.
been 10 points more or less. Um, and at the end of this week, it's still 10 points. Last
Okay.
week was 9 points. You've gained 1 point. Another fairly average week in terms of predictions. Got one correct result each, or correct scoreline, and then a few correct results. So pretty standard.
Yeah.
So yeah, should we start with Forest Spurs? That was the first game of the weekend.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, I think. What did we predict on this one? I think I went with a 2-1 Spurs win, right?
Uh, yes, and I went a 2-1 Forest win
Aha.
because it was the home team got in my head.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that's fairly valid. I mean, they did it to us, they've done it to other teams before, but I just.
yeah, and to be honest, like the way the game went, they were definitely unlucky not to score. Forest. And Tottenham, dominated possession as you'd expect, but Forest got a lot of shots off. They had some good chances. I think if they'd had, they've got a 1 year out and a couple of injuries, and if they had a couple of more clinical attackers, they definitely could have got a result, a draw, or a win out of the game. To be fair,
Yeah,
um,
definitely late on, they did look more of a threat, especially after the red card. So,
mm,
it's fair enough. I think it was valid to think that Forest could have got something out of the game. I think just going into it, the way Spurs were playing and the way Forest have typically played across the season, and they'd been in a bit of a decline recently as well. I just thought
yeah,
it's kind of the perfect game to just expose Cooper a bit and potentially be the final nail in the coffin before he eventually gets booted out.
yeah, and it
And
was.
yeah, there you go. He's out. Espirito Santo's in. I think from what I can remember of him at Wolves, he's a very defensive coach. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think there's some sort of stylistic similarities between because Cooper had been playing a three at the back for Forest in the Premier League anyway, um, in a kind of quite pragmatic counter-attacking, defensively solid formation. And yeah, I think Nuno did a similar thing at Wolves. I think he always played three at the back, relied on wing backs. I remember Matt Doherty playing really well at
yeah,
Wolves,
yeah, you are right. Yeah,
and then I think they had the like wide wing backs, quite attacking, and then they also had wingers that would play a little bit more narrow, but that would just exploit the sort of the channels with pace and things like that. Like they had a Dharma Traore.
I'm imagining
Um,
Neto really made a name for himself under
yeah,
Santo. Yeah,
Neto, Dharma Traore. They had Jimenez up front, and so they kind of just played with a lot of width, a lot of pace down the flanks, and then doubling up with a winger and a wing back, and then hitting Jimenez in the box. So I think Forest have been playing a three at the back system, and I think there's certainly players there that will suit how Nuno might want to play.
yeah,
And he did have a good record at Wolves. He's got a bit of a tarnished reputation because he went to Spurs and did kind of badly, but he wasn't really given a chance. He was given 10 games. He won like four of them or five of them. So it wasn't even awful at Spurs, but I think he was never their guy. I think they got him in, they kind of rushed him in because they'd gone the whole summer without getting a manager, hadn't really got any of their first names, and they were like, shit, we need one now.
yeah. I think he was
Rushed him
about
in, and
eighth
then was it
choice, wasn't he?
Conte or Mourinho became available? Um,
I think yeah. Oh no, yeah. I think it was Conte
yeah, I think
because
so.
they went. What was it? 8 different managers that they couldn't get
Yeah,
before
yeah,
they
they went through
then.
the whole thing where they just kept failing to get each target.
Yeah, but yeah, I think he will be a decent fit. Whether he'll get much more out of that squad than Cooper, I just don't know. obviously with being a defensive coach, um, and being used to coaching teams who have a more defensive style and are typically not the strongest in the league, then he could definitely stabilise them. I just think with the quality of managers in this league at the moment, there's no guarantee that he comes in and works.
Yeah,
They
that's the
could
thing.
continue on the same trajectory.
Um,
They've got certainly the right setup with the players like Elanga and Gibbs White, and then do they even have Hudson Odoi? Don't they? I believe, or is that someone?
yeah,
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 yeah. With your Awoniyi and Chris Woods up front, I could certainly see some similarities with Awoniyi to Jimenez, for example.
yeah,
Not Jimenez. Um, Certainly Gibbs White could be your Neto replacement, and Elanga could be, well, just useful as he seems to be. So yeah, no, it does look like that structure in terms of the side is ready made for him. I don't think he'll have much money to do much in January, just because how
No, well,
much
they
Forest has
signed so
spent.
many players, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Well, this
Yeah,
year they
I think
didn't.
I see them. He'll stabilise them, like you say. I think the top 10 is really competitive now. Certainly more competitive than when Wolves finished seventh a couple of years in a row. Not to take away from those two seasons because they were mad, but harder to do that now. So I don't think they won't be pushing that or anything. But I think he'll stabilise them. I think the thing is with them is they signed loads of players, but they've also got sort of key areas where there still seem to be missing quality, especially when you get an injury or two. Um,
I'm thinking
so
about
the
the right
squad's
wing
sort of
back.
yeah, like
Because
and they
after
just signed
Williams,
loads of sort of just loads of good players, but then they seem to be missing in key areas somehow at the same time. So
well, I think it's just
um,
not all the players they've signed are as good as kind of assumed when they signed them.
yeah, they had a bit of a scattergun approach, didn't they? They just sort of sign a load and something will stick.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, I
it's
think it'll
kind of
stabilise them,
worked.
improve them a bit.
It is.
Right?
I'm just saying. I think it is. It has kind of worked for them. Like when they came up,
Oh
we all
yeah,
had
yeah,
them in that kind of Luton bracket where it's like there's absolutely no way that they're going to stay up in this league. They're far ahead of where they're supposed to be. They got very little financial backing, etc., and they just weren't in the right place. The squad wasn't good enough, and then they just went, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to spend millions and millions, buy a load of players, and hopefully some of them will stick, and it did. So it
yeah. That's
worked.
the
I
thing.
mean,
You've got to give it a try, haven't you? You kind of if you want to be competitive and you want to stay in the league, you kind of have. It happened with us when we got promoted, and people were saying we were doing a Fulham or whatever. But the reality is, a lot of the time when you come up from the Championship, you've got a squad full of players who are not Premier League standard, contracts running out, a lot of loan players, blah blah blah. Sometimes you have just got to sign a shitload of players.
yeah, it's fair enough.
Um,
So yeah, what's the next game on our fixture list?
well, the next game I've got on the list was Bournemouth Luton. Um, nothing we
Yeah,
can say about that.
we should touch on that really. Crazy to see. I mean, that's not even the first time it's happened to him in his career, Tom Lockyer.
No, it happened earlier this year.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
but apparently slightly different uh, problems, which is either extremely bad luck or there's something that somebody missed along the line.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
we're not medical experts, so we probably shouldn't go into that. But
yeah, well, but it is weird that he has a sort of heart problem in. I think it was May, like playoff final, wasn't it?
yeah, it was in
Um,
the playoff final. Yeah.
and then he's given the all clear, and then he has another issue that is apparently a separate and unrelated issue, and obviously that could just be a massive coincidence, but it's also could be the case that there's something that they missed or something underlying that the science isn't there on it yet or something. But yeah, it was he was kind of seemed alright fairly quickly. He kind of went down and then he was back conscious quite quickly in hospital and whatever. I think I read today that he's had an operation and had a
Okay.
um, defibrillator in or something
Okay.
put in something like that. So I think he's now had the same operation that Christian Eriksen had.
Right. Okay. So yeah, hopefully he'll be all right in the future and stable, at least on the pitch.
Yeah, hopefully he can still have a bit of a career, but you never know, really,
Yeah.
kind of
I
thing.
mean, yeah. I mean, it's going to be difficult for him because even with Ericsson, he was at quite a high level before
Yeah,
all this happened, and he has significantly dropped off, even though yes, he's at United, which is a Premier League side, top tier football side technically. Um, he's still not anywhere near the player he was, and I think with Lockyer having his starting position being a lot further down the football hierarchy, I think it's going to be more difficult for him to sustain a
Yeah,
Premier
I
League
see that.
career.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
wish him all the best, obviously, and just glad he's not. Well, glad
yeah. I
he
mean,
is
that's
still
the
with us,
thing.
I
I
guess.
think he'll probably stick around the club, won't he? And whether he plays or not, again, I suppose it's up to him. But I mean, footballers have different mindsets, don't they? But if I had two major events like that, and I was 29, kind of coming toward the end of my career anyway, I'd be just thinking, I'm not going to risk dying for this. I'd be like, I'd
Yeah,
say to the club, I'd say, I want to keep training, I want to stay around the club, coaching role, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's up to the person. People have completely different mindsets and mentalities about this kind of thing. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're only human at the end of the day, so there's not much more
yeah,
you can ask of him than to just really try his best, I guess.
yeah, just do
Should
what's
we?
best
Yeah,
for him.
we'll move on to the next game. Um,
So Chelsea, Sheffield United.
yeah, I mean, we'll touch on this quickly. Chelsea dominated as we kind of expected, I suppose.
Yeah,
Um,
I went 2-1 Chelsea in this one. You went 4-1 Chelsea. It was pretty much went. I mean, yeah, pretty much went how you'd expect. Chelsea dominated. Sheffield United didn't really do anything.
yeah, not much to talk about. The only thing I'll talk about is if Chelsea can do it at home against Sheffield United, then we
Yeah,
definitely can. So
yeah,
I'm looking
yeah.
forward to tomorrow. Um, what were the other? We had some focus. What were the other focus
So
games?
City Palace is another
Yes,
one.
yes, Palace. Bizarre, bizarre, bizarre. But I mean, it's
Yeah,
becoming a bit of a theme with City now. Is even in those games where they do dominate, they seem to just have this soft underbelly right at the back, where even though they don't necessarily concede loads of chances against every team, when they do, they seem to be either very high quality or at least the other side seem to be extremely clinical. And I don't know if that's got something to do with the nature of City being as dominant as they are and as big a kind of scalp as they are, if you are able to beat them. But we haven't seen this necessarily as to this extent previously, so it does beg the question as to
yeah.
what is actually causing this. Is this a Pep Guardiola um, kind of mistake in a way? Is he trying something that just simply isn't working, or is this a more sort of mentality kind of oriented change? Like other players getting a bit more just bored or tired of being at City? Is the maybe the emotional weight of the charges and potentially all of their performances and accolades etc being revoked or being tarnished, is that weighing on them? Not sure. Is the pressure from media outlets and things talking about the constant demise building on it? Possibly all these things might be true. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what without
It's
being
very hard
Pep
to know,
yourself.
isn't it? It's very hard to know. I imagine it's probably a combination of all of those things, really. Fatigue will be an issue because doing a treble, going to the ends of competitions last season, and then having quite a quite an intense title race. They had to ramp it up toward the end of the league. So probably there's a bit of lingering fatigue, and then the mentality thing is an issue. I think people always talk about it when you win everything in a year. The hardest thing is then doing it again the next year because you do naturally, even though you're super competitive as a footballer, it's hard to have at least some drop off in your mentality when you've kind of achieved everything in a year, and then the next year you've got to gear yourself up. Within about 2 or 3 months, you've got to gear yourself up to get back in that mindset again.
Yeah, they always say it's
It's hard to get
harder
to quite
to
the same level.
yeah, it's always harder to maintain being on top than it is to get there, because the motivation to get there is
Yeah,
always, I just have to be better than the person in front of me. Once you're at the top, you have to be better than you were before, and it becomes a
yeah,
completely different kind of battle. It's battling your own mental sort of limitations. It's battling your own previous work. It's like constantly trying to be better with no real target in mind. So
Yeah,
I suppose, yeah, that does make sense. It is interesting though to just note the lack of appearances for Kovacic and Nunez when they're missing a lot of their midfield, and I don't know, were they more club signings, or are we just seeing what we typically see from Guardiola when he signs at least
yeah, I don't know.
wingers, where he likes to
It is
bed them in for
interesting.
a year before they really get a lot of game
Yeah,
time?
he does tend to do that. But then you think with Kovacic, especially, he's so experienced.
Yeah,
If anybody's going to kind of slot into a midfield, you'd think he'd be able to do that. I think the midfield seems to be the area people are talking about because they lost Gundogan and then they haven't got De Bruyne obviously, so there has been a kind of change there. But then you look at it and there's still heaps of quality there. It shouldn't really be an issue, but it is odd that they've got these players who they've signed who aren't really getting a look in. Um,
yeah,
like Rico Lewis played against Palace, and you would think, I mean, Rico Lewis is obviously a quality player, and he scored a goal in the game, but um, maybe with Kovacic on the pitch, would they have had the experience to see out the game uh, and be a bit more composed towards the end of the game or something? I don't know.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, to dominate the game as they typically do, and then to go and exceed the XG conceded off of what 5 shots.
yeah, within the last 10, 15 minutes as well at home. It was they were completely comfortable, and within 15 minutes, it all just fell apart. Palace hadn't really had a look in the whole
Yeah,
game.
I suppose
Um,
about what was it, 0.75, point 0.8 of that is from the penalty. But even then,
yeah,
to give away the penalty in the final few minutes, it,
yeah. Well, it's just of a team that has just won the treble, you don't expect them to be really comfortable in the game and then for it to fall apart. It's just something that doesn't happen with top teams. They don't. If they're good at anything, it's closing out games and grinding out those results. When it's teams like teams like in Villa's situation where you think can they be pushing the top? Usually, where those teams let themselves down is when they make silly errors and they lose their composure in those kind of high pressure moments when they've got to close out games. The top teams like Man City last year, it would be unthinkable for them to be 2-0 up completely comfortable at Palace and then let it slip in the last 10, 15 minutes.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
very
it is really
strange.
bizarre. It's really confusing. It's kind of you can't point to anything obvious. It's not like they've got a key injury and they haven't found a replacement player. You look at the starting 11 and there shouldn't be a problem there.
I think there has
It's not
been
like
inconsistencies in the
last year.
squad. I mean, like De
They
Bruyne
have,
is
yeah,
obviously
but
a key injury.
they've still got a really strong core. They're still playing the vast majority of players who played a big role in the treble last year. Um, it just seems to me that there have been injuries, but it seems to me that they're perfectly well equipped. And Guardiola is a very flexible manager. He signs intelligent footballers as well who can play a number of different roles. Um, if I feel like if the injuries were affecting their performance more widely, maybe it would make more sense. And you'd think, okay, well they've got a few positions where they're not as stable,
Yeah,
and that's making their entire level drop down a little bit. But with this Palace game, their level was good. They were comfortable. They were 2-0 up. They were playing a good game. And then for no explicable reason, they just lost it. They just fluffed it. To me, that kind of suggests it's a mentality thing. Not that I know anything, but I think it can't. Their level was good that game. You can't say that it was because De Bruyne wasn't there or Haaland wasn't there because they played a really good game for 75 minutes. And then when it suddenly kind of all falls apart in the last 10, 15, that suggests it's a mentality thing to me.
yeah, you're looking for more leadership there, I think, as
Yeah,
well.
you're losing focus, concentration, and yeah, you
Was
need your
that
senior
was
players to
Stones
don't let
playing
it
in this
slip.
game? I think he's out at the moment, isn't
He
he?
came on very late on,
Yeah.
but he didn't
Was,
really play a role.
was that after Palace had already scored one or two?
I think he came on after either just after or just before Palace's second goal.
Okay. So yeah, he didn't really have time
Um,
to properly affect the game because I think
no,
the likes of Stones and Rodri and Diaz, when they're on the pitch, they do really add an element of intimidation to the opposition, of like huge figures in that team that others can look up to and respect and follow an example of. So if any of those players are missing, and especially when you're then missing top attacking talents as well, I think the overall confidence of the team can just take a hit.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing with Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis was in centre mid. He did have a good game. He had a really good game. But um, if that when you're closing out a game, especially in central midfield, which is such an influential position, where you've got to be positionally and in terms of focus and concentration, you've got to be completely on it. Sometimes when you've got a less experienced player there, even if they have a good game and they're really talented, sometimes those mentality aspects that come with experience, which people like Stones who've got all those elements to their game, sometimes that is when you want Stones in there rather than Rico Lewis. I think Edison had like a bit of a naff game as well, which can happen with Edison.
Yeah, he does have a howler in him every now and then.
Yeah, and in a role like in the goalkeeping position, it kind of saps the confidence of the entire defence sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
What did we
nobody
predict for that
knows.
one? I think we both predicted a relatively big win for City, didn't we?
Yeah, I went 3-1. You went 3-0.
Yeah.
I think that was standard. That was just they've got form for having dips um, midway through seasons, and at some point they usually get it together with a big win. But I think we were both expecting that to happen, really, but it didn't.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Strange, strange. What do you
yeah, well, the
think it
interesting thing
means
now
for the
is
top
how
four race?
far. You what?
What do you think it means for the top four race?
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's the interesting thing is, the longer this goes on, the more interesting it does make top four. Usually they snap out of these spells fairly quickly or with enough time that they can get it together and then storm the league in the last couple months.
Yeah,
But it's kind of getting to the point now where if they keep because the level's so high, if they don't get it together soon, they could be kind of putting themselves in a bit of trouble. Certainly in terms of the title race. Um,
well, it was
I don't know. It doesn't.
7 points that Arsenal led by at a certain point last
Yeah, I
year.
think this time of year last season. To be fair, I think they were definitely top of Christmas.
Yeah, and so I
Um,
think the current gap's 5 points between Arsenal
yeah,
and
5. Yeah,
City, but Arsenal
yeah,
seem like a much more stable side this year. They might not necessarily be as high flying and explosive and exciting as they were last year, but they seem like they have more depth and more stability at the back to go into every game and essentially build off that solidarity. And when
yeah,
the pressure comes, if they can just calm the game down and be solid for a good half an hour, whatever, no matter how much pressure there is or whatever atmosphere there is, if they can control a game and be solid, they can sort of calm the nerves and take each game as it comes, if you know what I mean. Even
yeah.
midway through.
Well, they've got that experience of going through it now, haven't they? Last year, that group of players had never quite been at that level before. They'd never been at the top of the table. It was a young team. Most of them have never been in a title race. Whereas now, all those players, even though a lot of them are still quite young, they've all been through it. They all know what it feels like. They all will now know a bit more about what you need to sustain it and what they were missing last year. Um,
Yeah.
so are kind of a more daunting prospect um, in that sense. And yeah, I mean, it's 5 points now. Obviously, you play loads of games over the Christmas period. If City don't get it together soon, they could be like 10, 12 points adrift in a few weeks with the amount of games you play. Um,
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, what are their fixtures this weekend and Christmas,
um, who are
Boxing
they
Day?
play? Well, they're not playing this game week because they're in the Club World Cup.
Yes, that's right.
They've got Everton away, Sheffield United at home, then they've got Newcastle away.
Yeah, I mean, we could see them
Um,
very quickly be a good 10 points behind Arsenal.
yeah, like if they get, so say in their next, they've got Everton, Sheffield United, then Newcastle. So that's the next three league games. On the current form, you could see them dropping points to Everton and Newcastle away from home. Whether
Yeah,
that be, they could get 2 points, 4 points out of those games, and you'd expect them to win it home against Sheffield United. But yeah, they could lose 4 or 6 points on Arsenal in the next few game weeks. if they carry on their current trajectory. So they do need to get it together. It does make it more interesting. It's good for us and Tottenham, because that's the thing with City as well. They've got Tottenham right on their heels, which is going to be a bit of a mental thing if this goes on for much longer. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean,
What game week are we coming into now? Is it 18th or 17th or?
it is 18, yeah, this week.
Okay. So after
Uh,
Boxing Day, I think we can really reevaluate where we are in the season and say perhaps we can relook at our predictions as well. Um,
yeah, well, that'll
Something
be
like that.
halfway, won't it?
Yeah,
Um,
that'll be the real point of. I think clarity is when we get halfway through the season and we can officially say, 50% of the way in, this isn't just a bad start anymore. This isn't just a good start anymore for whatever team we're looking at. This is 50% done. So unless you
yeah, exactly.
dramatically change things from where they are, this is basically telling us what's going to happen for the season.
Yeah,
Of course, there
yeah.
will be teams
Well,
that dramatically change where they are, but you can very rarely see that coming. So let's move on to the next fixture. I believe,
well,
is it the
I think
Everton
for
one?
that game week we'll just do the Villa game, I reckon,
Well,
and
I
then get
wanted to
on to
touch
predictions.
on the Everton fixture because it
Okay.
was the Dyche derby, and he came in, he conquered, and do you know what? I think I have to finally strip my Everton band-aid off and say, you know what, they're decent now. Yeah,
Yeah, you. It's hard to with to stick with your bias that Everton are a shit team now, considering they'd be
ninth, I
on
think.
equal on points with Brighton if they hadn't had the 10 points deduction now, which is crazy.
Would they be ninth?
Uh,
They'd be top half at least.
they'd be ninth or 10th, I think,
Yeah.
but on goal difference.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, it's very disappointing for them because this could be, considering the last few years, if they continue at this rate, this could be a historic season for them. They could
yeah, I
end up
mean,
close to where
Conference
we got.
League.
Yeah.
Conference League this year with the change in the Champions League, fifth might be a Champions League spot, eighth would be a Conference League spot. They'd be well on for that.
Well,
They'd only have to finish
currently,
above United, West Ham, Brighton, Chelsea.
currently, thanks to United and Newcastle, we don't get an extra Champions League spot, so we're going to have to go win some competitions and some
Well,
knockout
currently,
games
yeah. Well,
to actually get that.
I saw a kind of predictions thing for it, and I think our outlook for it is still all right because we're favourites in the
Yeah.
Conference League. City are still favourites for the Champions League. Liverpool are favourites for the Europa League. So if the teams that are still in the competition perform as expected, I think we're still on for it. But it is
Yeah.
down to
And
those teams
we'll,
performing
we'll
now. We
still
are currently
benefit.
behind a couple of
Yeah, we'll
teams.
still benefit from Brighton and West Ham going through their groups and potentially winning
Yeah,
knockout
they're doing well.
games. Arsenal as
Yeah.
well. So there's definitely still potential there, but of course we can never count chickens before they've hatched.
Nope.
Um, but yeah, Everton looking pretty good. Just to see what they've done to Chelsea in recent weeks, what they've done to Newcastle. These are teams that we all had, or most of us had, in the top half of the table to finish at the end of the league season. Especially, with the likes of Brighton and Newcastle and Chelsea, we had them in those sort of 10th to 7th kind of spots. So if
Yeah.
Everton are beating those teams and on merit should be in those positions, it's hard not to say that if they continue this, they won't get there. So yeah, I'd be keen to see that because they're a club that's just moved to a new stadium, so financially they're not going to be as sort of free as they would want to be. If they start seeing that success. So in terms of a club that we would be competing with in those European positions, it's nicer for them to be there than a club like Newcastle where they can just constantly build off of their success
Yeah.
because of their financial
Yeah.
power. So yeah, with Everton going there, I'm all for it. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's
They're
move on
doing
to
really well.
well, actually, what was our predictions? I think I was 3-1, right?
You went 3-1 Everton. I went 2-1 Everton. Um,
2-0 in the end. Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty. I mean, yeah, you could definitely see the Everton win coming because they'd just been playing well, and Burnley aren't particularly. I mean, yeah, looking at how the game went, Burnley controlled the ball but didn't create as many clear cut chances, which is basically the story of Burnley, isn't it?
Story of their
Um,
season. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. They're just let's not talk about Burnley anymore. We talked
We did end up
so
talking
we
about
do
Burnley a
dwell on
lot, but
Burnley, and I don't want to dwell on Burnley anymore, man. They've disappointed me enough. If they turn it around, cool. But for now, like, just same old, same old. So let's
pretty
talk
much.
about Villa, because it
Yeah.
was not same old Villa last weekend.
No, it was
Not at all.
a bit of a dicey game.
A Daichi game. Not stuck on Burnley, are
Dicey.
we? Yeah, I mean, we obviously, if you just look at the stats and you look at it from that level and the top line perspective, you go, each team had a red card, and at the same time, Villa dominated possession, dominated the shots, dominated the XG, and you go, okay, Villa deserved to win this game. When you look at it from another perspective of before the red cards, there's a case for us not necessarily deserving to win this game, just because while we did dominate the ball and we did often create avenues into their box and create good opportunities to have sort of high XG chances, we just didn't quite have the final ball, and we got a little bit flustered in tight spaces at times, and we especially once we had a few good opportunities, especially with Moreno in that first half, they did drop even deeper and get more compact. And while I certainly don't like to advocate for that style of play in terms of that being the way football should be played, and that's what we want to watch, and we want to see smash and grab wins where the team literally just compacts in their box and hopes for a counter-attacking goal. Like, if we can't put the ball in the net and we can't break that down, then do we deserve to win? But then,
Yeah.
with the tackle that Ben Mee puts in, regardless of how the game's going, if you're going to do that, you don't deserve to be on the pitch, and
No.
therefore don't deserve to win that game. Because if you deserve to be down to 10 men, it's hard to say that you're playing well and you deserve to win a game. So, and I mean, the chances
Yeah.
we created, while they weren't necessarily the most intricate and the most well crafted of goals, they they were well taken. I think they were well deserved by the end of the 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think they were solid chances at the end. By the end of the game, we had done enough, I think, to say that we deserved the win. But certainly before the red card, it was much more even. You probably say a draw. I mean, we were 1-0 down, weren't we? And that felt a bit unjust because we had been on
Yeah,
top and we'd created. Cash had a really good chance the first half. Ramsey had a good chance. We had created chances. Losing the game would have felt harsh before that red card, but they just put their chance away. But then yeah, red card changed the game. Obviously, was a deserved red, and kind of just yeah they undid themselves really with that stupid tackle. And then yeah, by the end of the game, I think we'd created enough to say that we deserved it.
yeah.
But no, not
I,
pretty.
it was so unusual from Ben Mee. Like, it's not Brentford style. It's not his style at all to behave like that on the pitch. It's just so strange. I think perhaps maybe
Yeah,
there's some resentment within Brentford about us taking players and beating them to Conference League, perhaps. But that just seems strange to me because
I
he's
don't
not
know.
been there long, and that
No, it doesn't
Thomas
really
Frank seems like a
sound
very
very
level-headed
convincing.
manager. He wouldn't let that kind of environment build within his players and his squad. So I I find that hard to believe. I just think it was just a very strange moment from Ben Mee. Perhaps he just was frustrated because they couldn't get anything out of the game at the time. So I can't even
Yeah, I
remember their
suppose
goal, to be
when you're
honest with
hemmed
you.
in like that and you can't even get a foot on the ball, you can tend to get frustrated.
What was their
But
goal
I
again? I
suppose
don't. Sorry.
he's a physical defender, isn't he? So
Yeah.
sometimes defenders can, especially when it's against wingers like Bailey, they can use their physicality to intimidate a player. And maybe he intended to go in with a tackle that was to intimidate him, but he just went in with too much pace, too much force,
Well, it wasn't even
or
the right part of the pitch to be doing that because most of his team were behind him at that point once he engaged in that tackle, and they're right outside their own box. They just like nothing that I've
yeah,
ever seen about Ben Mee suggests to me he should be flying out of his box while they're defending deep and compact to do like a flying slide tackle on someone who's not even necessarily taken their first touch yet, a few yards outside the box. Like
yeah.
that's for one of your midfielders to be taken care of. I don't know why he's flying out like that. It was
No, it
very
was a
very
weird one.
strange. Should we
Pretty
move on
inexplicable.
to the antics that followed. I
Yeah, well,
mean,
it was a we were almost they were kind of the architects of their own downfall with that stupid red card, and then we almost did it to ourselves. We were quite comfortable by the end of the game. We scored the second goal in like the 85th, and then Watkins celebrated at a fan who'd apparently been abusing him and winding him up.
yeah. And I
And
mean, he
Brentford
didn't he
players
didn't
all
go over
got
the top,
involved.
did he? He just pointed at him and
And
was
we just
just like,
pointed at him. It
yeah,
wasn't taunting them or anything like that, but he was just making his point that he'd been abused all game and now he just lost. He just won the game for Villa. So he was making a fair point. But yeah, he just pointed at him, and then Brentford players were getting involved, and then there was a bit of a scuffle, and then after that, the game was just chaos. Like there were
yeah,
yellow cards coming out
pantomime.
everywhere, and we were 2-1 up, 85 minutes against 10 men, and you're thinking, okay, we can relax now. We can just keep the ball. But oh my god, we just lost it, man. They were winding us up. We were taking the bait. It was
I think
getting
it was
worried.
pretty even on both sides in terms of who was winding up who. I mean, like Neil
Yeah, no,
Malpai was
yeah, it was,
definitely
yeah,
the pantomime villain, like
yeah,
personified
yeah,
that role within a football team. But
yeah.
Emi Martinez, I don't know what role he personifies. He's his own role. Like,
He's just the maverick, isn't he? He just does his own bloody thing.
yeah, so strange. I see it from two sides because on one side of it, I like seeing the passion because that kind of passion and that kind of fight and games like that bring a squad together, especially if they don't know each other that well, right? Because they see everyone's in it together. They're all playing
Yeah,
for each other. When times get hard, they pull through. You know, that
yeah,
that does really bring us together. And we always see on Instagram and things these videos of the players walking in to training on most mornings, whatever it is, and they'll all say good morning and they'll be jogging past. I think for the first time, or not for the first time, but probably the best example of what I've seen of that um, was this week after that result. They're all coming onto the pitch. They're all joking with each other,
I saw that.
laughing,
Yeah,
squabbling with.
yeah,
Normally, they're a bit more chilled out, a bit more focused, a bit
yeah.
more professional. But I think that was just like a byproduct of that result, and everyone being brought together a bit more. There's probably tons of conversations and banter in the changing rooms and things about what happened, and that would have brought everyone together, which I think is perfect for this time of year, and with the season we're having, to try and solidify this form and really ingrain it into the players' heads that you know this we're not overperforming. This is just our level now, and if you keep playing for each other, you keep the squad harmony up. There's no reason we can't continue. So on that side of things, I'm all for what happened. I don't agree necessarily with Kamara putting his hands to that guy's face and getting a red card. He just didn't really need to do it. He just seemed to be trying to bother him for no apparent reason. Like,
Yeah, well, that's when it gets frustrating. Is that I don't, Emmy. Everyone knows Emmy is a shit house. Usually I love it. I love it when he saves a penalty and winds the fans up, and he gets in players' heads with penalties and all that. You want a goalkeeper. You want your goalkeeper to be a mid mental. You want your keeper to get in the heads of the attackers. Um, but it just when you're trying to close out a game. I feel like there's certain situations. If you're losing a game, this is why I say um, Brighton were kind of not Brighton, Brentford were trying to kind of encourage the chaos because they were losing the game. For
yeah,
them, it can only benefit their position. Whereas for us, we're trying to close the game out, and that's when Emmy was reacting to Mope a little bit, and they were both at each other, and then it led to this big scuffle, and then Kamara got sent off, and it was all just stupid. Really, it was like Emmy didn't need to be faffing about with Mope. Kamara, they didn't need all the players didn't need to get involved in that. Kamara obviously was just pushing the guy around for no particular reason. When you're winning a game and you need to close it out, that's when you kind of don't want to see that. That's why it was a little bit annoying because it was just like, these things happen in games sometimes, and you do want to see it. You want to see the passion. You want to see the togetherness from a team, and it can really galvanise a squad. And at the end of the day, we still closed the game out. And like you say, it will have been like a galvanising moment for the team, but at the same time, it was a little bit unnecessary. And now it means that we've lost Kamara for 3 games, which is a bit of a blow. I think, luckily, one of the games is Sheffield United, one of the games is Burnley. We should have plenty of depth to deal with those games,
yeah,
regardless.
especially at
But the Man
home.
United, Man United away, obviously would be really nice to have Kamara in that game. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was entertaining, and you do want to see the at the end of the day, you do want to see the passion from the players, really, and these things happen.
Yeah,
But just a little bit of a shame that we lost Kamara out of it, really. But I think you wouldn't really change it, would you? You know, you wouldn't want your players to be too passive. I like that element of the game where players are winding each other up. But so you know, you wouldn't change it at the end of the day, but you do also want a little bit more professionalism, I think, when you're closing the game out.
not necessarily professionalism, just more composure. I think.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with when Emmy pushed Mope or like slightly brushed his back or whatever, and Mope went down. I was thinking, okay, that was a bit stupid. You're probably getting a yellow card, but leave it at that. It's fine. But then he walked over and tried to pull him up, and that's when the composure is lost. I feel like Emmy pushing him is just Emmy being a shithouse. But then Emmy like suddenly going over and shouting at him, trying to pull him up. He's kind of lost his head a little bit there. That is where you want, you
Yeah,
know,
I think that that
yeah,
was the defining moment because
yeah,
Maupai bumps into him and he falls over. Well, he dives, but you
yeah,
know. My pound does the same thing to him. It's just tit for tat.
yeah,
Like, but if he wants to sit on the floor and complain, you stand there
yeah.
with the ball ready
Just
to
let,
take your free kick, and you just laugh at him sitting on the floor. Because the best thing you can do
yeah,
for someone who's rattled is just stay calm, because they'll just get
yeah,
worse, and eventually they'll be punished for that. And whether that be from the ref or through their own stupid decisions, they will end up suffering the consequences for that. So, but I think we all know Emi Martinez is a passionate guy, so I don't necessarily
yeah.
blame
He's got
him
a bit of a screw loose, hasn't he? So
for getting pulled into it. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, overall, decent game. I'm happy.
Yeah, fun game. Good result. It was one of them where you know they say about really good teams. You can tell a team's good when they can go away from home, grind out a hard result, which you don't necessarily clearly deserve. Um, and yeah, hopefully a galvanising moment for the squad. Um, just need to hope that we don't miss Kamara too much, really.
Yeah, I think well against United, their midfield has been lacking a lot of incisive passing and penetration. So I honestly I think you can stick Dendonker in there with Dougie or play a four-man midfield with Tielemans as
Yeah,
well, and
I still think we'll have
probably come out
enough.
on top.
Yeah.
Or at least not lose. So yeah, not too worried about that. Should we? So, well, let's round off and toss up the points for this week.
Yeah, so I'll go over the other results and do the points. So Forest Spurs, I got no points for that because I got sucked in. But you got a point. Bournemouth Luton, we'll just call that NA.
Yeah, yeah.
Chelsea Sheffield United, we both got a point. City Palace, neither of us got a point. Nobody saw that coming. Newcastle Fulham, you got the point. I went for a draw actually that game.
Mhm.
Uh, got that completely wrong. Burnley Everton both got a point. Arsenal Brighton, I got the correct score for that one. 2-0 Arsenal. You went 2-1 Arsenal, so you got a point. Brentford Villa, you got a correct result. Correct
That's the one that
scoreline.
matters.
Yeah. I went for a Villa win, but I went 1-0 Villa. So West Ham Wolves, didn't talk about this game. 3-0 West Ham, bit of a weird one actually. We should touch on that, but
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
I went 3-2, but I went 3-2. You went for a Wolves win, but West Ham just comfortably.
yeah, they're just so inconsistent. You can't really predict them, can you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we said it going in. That's why I went 3-2. It was because it was one of those games where two teams who can be really good, can be quite crap, can't
Mm,
really see what's coming. So yeah, a bit of a weird result. So I got a point for that one. You got nothing. And then Liverpool United, neither of us got anything because we both went for a Liverpool win.
yeah.
Um, so that's the points. 57-67 now. 10
Okay.
points in
Well,
it.
slowly extending the gap. Consistency. That's what we need.
Yeah, well, yeah. I feel like if we averaged it out, you'd probably be each week. You'd probably gain about 0.3 points, and then by the end of the season, it'll be like 15 or something. Um,
Maybe.
so yeah, next week or this week or tonight,
Yes, tonight
we've
is.
got
Well,
Palace
yeah, yeah,
Brighton.
yeah. I mean, for this week's games, maybe we'll do a prediction and say a little bit about the games. Or do you want to just do quick fire on these as well as the quick fire that we're going to do on?
I reckon we could try and do fairly quick fire, but I reckon I'm just gonna highlight a couple now that we'll go talk about this week. And
Yeah.
then for Boxing Day, we'll rattle through all of them. This week we can do mostly we can rattle through them, and then I'll pick. Should I pick 3, 4 games to talk about?
No, let's just go through them, and if there's anything interesting we need to say, we can say it.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
What's the first game? Is it Crystal Palace home to Brighton tonight?
Palace Brighton tonight. Yeah,
Um, wow, it's interesting. Palace inconsistent, do things on some occasions. It's pretty much the same thing with Brighton, but just a different style of side. So I could
yeah,
easily see a Palace win or a high-scoring draw. I don't see a Brighton win here. Like it could happen, but you're just kind of making decisions on sentiment there, just because Brighton have this way of playing.
yeah. I think based on Palace on actual results, yeah, Brighton are not necessarily clear favourites because they can be hit and miss, and then the results haven't been consistent. And Palace have had some decent results recently, despite injuries and stuff. So
Yeah, I think what was Brighton Brighton's previous result? Who did they
they
play?
lost to Arsenal
Yes, that
2
was
0
it.
last week.
Yes, they're away again. Not going to have a home game to bounce up, boost the confidence. Go away again. Another tough place to go, typically, at least from the other team being a good defensive unit. So, do you know what? I'm going to put my neck out and go Crystal Palace 2-1.
Damn, neck is out. Okay.
Yeah, not
Yeah, I think
particularly far out. It's not the most outrageous thing
not
anyone's
miles
ever
out, no.
said.
Yeah, I kind of agree with all your reasoning, really. Yeah,
I think
I
you
don't
should go
see.
for a draw just to.
Stop fucking getting in my head about these results.
Yeah, it was like
Um,
the Forest Tottenham one. I
yeah,
was like gassing you up, thinking you'd got the right result and you were gonna really piss me off, and then I got
just
it.
didn't happen. Just
Yeah,
didn't happen. Yeah, no. Draw. I mean, draw is what I'm leaning towards. Draw or Palace win. I don't know. It's Palace one of those teams where it feels weird to back them because you just don't know what you're getting. It's like you're standing on a rickety bridge and you don't know whether you're going to fall through or it's going to hold. Whereas Brighton, I feel like you
what the
expect a
fuck was
level of
that
performance.
analogy?
It holds up. It's like Brighton. Brighton. You expect a level of performance, right? This is
I
my
don't know.
problem with.
I don't know. I expect a certain style of play, but I don't know if I expect a certain level of
Yeah, that's the
performance.
thing. It's style of play. But it's not actually for them. It's not translating into actual like what's happened to Evan Ferguson? He can't score a goal at the moment.
Yeah. But what's your prediction, man? We're spending way too long on this.
uh, 1-1.
Oh, okay. So next it's Villa at home to Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Um, obviously we're without Kamara. Are we without Dean?
No, it's so Pau Torres is out,
Yeah.
Tielemans is out, and Kamara is suspended. That's the only first
Tielemans
team.
isn't back in for this one, is he not? Oh, I thought he
No,
would be. Okay. Well, I mean,
no. I
I'm not
think
too
Emery
worried.
said that Tielemans is a couple weeks. Torres, he said, is a small injury, won't be ready for this week, possibly next. That's
Yeah.
it, really.
Yeah. I think we'll be all right. It'll be probably a Carlos, Konza, Cash, Dino Moreno back four. That's
You'd imagine so.
plenty
What about
strong enough.
Longley? You think
Longley could come
Longley?
in. We could put Konza right back. I just don't think, especially because we'll probably bring Dendoncker into that midfield, and we'll probably play Ramsey and McGinn and Douglas Luiz because, of course, having Ramsey and McGinn as those wide players can also contribute as midfielders. He may bring
Yeah,
Zaniolo in just because it is a less challenging game than other games, and it's probably more suited to bringing in the likes of Zaniolo and Duran. But I think just because we are missing Kamara and Pau Torres, he'll want to play a stronger lineup just to make sure they see this one through. And
yeah,
with Dendonka being in there and that box midfield rather than having out and out wingers necessarily, that'll protect the back four a bit as well. So I don't think he'll go as far to put a sort of hybrid back four, back five in there where Konza's starting at this sort of semi right back, semi right centre back role. I think it will be a bit more of a traditional 4-4-2. And I think you have to just back us to come out with a win and a clean sheet here because Sheffield United don't really have a great goal scoring record. Perhaps you
no.
could look into the story arc of Cameron Archer coming back, but I don't see it happening.
There's not really any basis for it, is there, other than sentiment?
Yeah, so I mean, in my head, I'm thinking 3-0. I don't want to get overly confident because it is a slightly depleted squad and it is Christmas time and crazy things happen. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be far fetched at all, though, would it? Really? I mean, like I say, probably worst team in the league. They struggle to score goals. They struggle to create chances. We're on top form. Uh, I think you have got to expect a win to nil. I think I'll go two.
yeah, I'll stick with 3. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I've got a dilemma actually with in terms of Cameron Archer fantasy. Do I play Archer against Villa? I've got no Villa defenders, so I don't have to worry about losing a clean sheet. But I also don't want or expect him to score. Or do I play Branthwaite? He's got Tottenham away, but I feel like Everton are more likely to get a result against Tottenham away than Sheffield United
Yeah, I think
against Villa.
I think Everton might be Tottenham's kryptonite, just like
Yeah, and I
they
think
are
Branthwaite's got
in
the
away
set piece
cities.
threat.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think their absolute strength and mentality of just battling games out and their superior
Yeah.
physicality
And you've got
is
Dyche as well, who's like anti-football guy. And any team who plays good football, Dyche is
yeah,
super honed in. He's like,
yeah,
I'm gonna fuck these up with horrible football.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
personally, I'd probably go with Branthwaite because
I
even
think
if they
that's yeah,
score
that's what
from
I'm
like
on
a
so
corner
far.
or something and lose 3-0, like he could
Yeah,
be that guy. So, sorry, not
yeah.
3-0, 3-1.
Sweet.
But yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. Next game.
So we got Saturday morning, West Ham, Man United.
Oh,
Sticky,
yeah.
sticky.
Oh, I think we'll see probably quite even possession in this one. I reckon I'll go. I'm gonna go with either a 2-2 or a 3-2. I think.
I've got my prediction already. I'm in.
Hmm.
1-0 Man United
Oh, really?
all day. Easy peasy. I might put all my money on it.
Wow. Okay.
I was thinking, like, Man United do change their approach, don't they, based on their opponent. I think they'll see it as quite a hard game, West Ham away. And so I think they'll play quite a reserved style. They won't give too much away. They kept the clean sheet against Liverpool. And I feel like this is one of those games where they grind a 1-0. They've got form for it.
I just feel like, given the status of Man United and some of the players there, when West Ham ultimately don't show up to that game to control it and put Man United under huge amounts of pressure, United will more than happily take that ball and try and play possession football. And just because they have not been good at that enough yet, I just think West Ham will do what they typically tend to do against good possession sides and hit
Yeah,
them on the break and
I
be
could
quite
see that as
penetrative.
well. Yeah.
But then I do
Mm.
think, as United tend to scrape through some games and they just get the odd goal out of nowhere. I do think they'll score. So I'm gonna go 3-2 West Ham. Nice little
3-2 coming
yeah
out early this week.
yeah. I mean, it's got to happen sometimes, right?
It's got to. Actually,
It's
did we
not
get
that
one last
frequent.
week?
I don't think so.
No 3-2s last week.
Yeah.
It's falling apart. Okay, Fulham, Burnley.
Fulham at home, are
Yeah,
they? Oh, crikey! I'm not going
God
to say
knows.
5-0. I'm not going to say 5-0. They are. They have lost Jimenez. Yeah. So
They have, yeah, key player Jimenez.
yeah. Um, God, he's in the news. He's a big talking point over the last couple of weeks, isn't he?
Well, no, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange red card, but
Oh my God, yeah. Did you see it? It was insane.
mm,
What the hell was he doing?
a butt foul, butt to the face. Um,
Yeah,
in terms of the game, though, Fulham do quite like to build up with the ball. They are technical. They're in a good run of form, except for that Newcastle result. So I do think they'll win this game.
yeah,
I
me
see
too.
Burnley scoring, so I think a 2-1, 3-1 is on the cards. Just based off the home form, I think I'll go 3-1 Fulham.
3-1. Nice. Yeah, that's a good shout. I'm going to go 2-0 Fulham, I think. Um, yeah, Burnley struggled to score. Fulham are actually just a really solid team, aren't they? So that's that. Luton Newcastle. This could be an interesting one. Luton at home.
Oh God, don't ask me to call this. Jesus.
I am. That's what we're doing right now. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, sorry, I must have forgot. Shit. Luton at home. They like to do things. They do like
They
to do
do.
things. They
They
love
like
to
to score
do
goals.
things. Could there be another 3-2 shout?
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? That's a good shout. That could be fun.
Do you know what? I'm gonna do it. Fuck it.
Yeah,
I'm going with the 3-2.
nice.
I I know that's you getting in my head a bit there, but like,
I
why
mean,
not? You got
I
to
like
live.
it.
You got
I'm
to live.
tempted by it as well,
You got to live.
because yeah, Luton have been scoring goals. Scored against Arsenal.
Newcastle aren't the
Scored
best
against
away right now as well.
Newcastle. Are really bad away at the moment. Newcastle had a midweek game. Luton didn't. Newcastle are already thin on the ground. Um, God, Luton win.
Oh, we've got a
Luton win.
visitor. Oh, Jesus Christ, she's heavy.
God, Jesus Christ.
Oh, she's on the. Oh, she knows what she's doing. She's on the pod.
What
What's
do what does
the
she what does she reckon? Luton Newcastle. What's she
right?
telling you?
Okay, my right hand is Newcastle. My left hand is going to be Luton. Which one do you want? Luton. Okay, that was
Luton. There we
easy.
go.
Right, go on, Boot. Yeah,
Uh,
I'll stick with
right.
the three
Well,
two.
in that case, I'm gonna go 2-1 Luton.
Yeah, that's fair enough. As much as I am enjoying having made that prediction, I'm pretty sure it's not going to come off.
Yeah, I think the result is not a bad shout. Like I think on current form, draw or Luton win is a very reasonable prediction. The amount of goals is a bit of a
Yeah,
you know
I'm just looking at the Arsenal game and things like that, and just going,
yeah, that's the thing. They're definitely capable of scoring goals against good teams, and Newcastle
yeah,
are pretty messy defensively at the moment. So
yeah, we'll see how it goes.
yeah, excited for that game actually. So City Brentford is postponed. Forest at home to Bournemouth. This will be interesting. Bournemouth, good
Ooh.
team. Forest, new manager.
At home
Tough
to
one.
Bournemouth. Now that is interesting. I think I'm gonna back. I think it's hard not to back Forest here. And I know that's going to sound strange because of the form of Bournemouth, but when you get a new manager in and you do have a relative fortress at home, well, it's not really a fortress, but it's they do
Yeah, so
outperform their level at home. I think there's reason to believe you'll get a Forest win here. Like Bournemouth are playing very well and they've got good momentum, and I think it will be a tough game, but I just don't think they'll have enough to really dominate Forest at home. I think it could be quite even on XG, but we'll probably see Forest overperform their XG on this one. Could be a 2-1, 3-1, 3-2. I don't want to go for another 3-2 because that'd just be nuts. So I'll go for 2-1
it's
Forest, I think.
Christmas.
It is Christmas, that is right. But I'm not letting you get in my head. I'm going 2-1 Forest.
2-1.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree. Really, I think Forest obviously are good at home. Got the new manager bounce, if that's even a real thing. I'm going to go 2-0 Forest because I think the weird part of the weird thing about the sacking is that usually sackings happen when manager is either massively underperforming or he's completely lost the dressing room. But the
Yeah.
interesting thing for Forest is that the players were still and the fan base were still fully behind the manager.
Mm.
So it's not like Nuno's going into a team that's really down in terms of morale and everyone's massively underperforming individually and stuff like this. They've got players in there who are still performing individually. They've got players in there who are still optimistic about the season, stuff like that. So he's not going into a complete shit show. I think he'll set him up, you know, smartly. I can see Forest getting an early goal, scrappy goal, even game, and then I think Bournemouth will try and press them later on because I think Bournemouth are probably a more organised, generally a better team at the moment.
Yeah.
I think they'll put a bit of pressure on later on. Forest will be good at soaking it up, and then I can see a late goal on the counter. Um,
Quick
so yeah,
question. Do you
2-0.
think what we're seeing from Bournemouth, I've likened it previously to what we saw from Villa last season. Do you think it's a bit of a flash in the pan? Things are just aligning in the moment for the last few weeks, and they just sort of had a good period of form, or do you think this is an indicator of a more long-term change?
Um, I think somewhere in between, really. I think there's nothing to suggest that they're going to be um, hugely improved. Like, there's nothing yet to suggest that they'll be, challenging for Europe at the end of the season or next season or anything like that. But at the same time, I don't think it's just a kind of lucky run. Um, I think they've clearly improved in a kind of structural way that will be sustainable, and
Yeah,
will improve their level um, in the long term. So yeah, somewhere in between. I think the thing with like a more sustained improvement is it relies on transfers and stuff like that, and that's they have actually, they've got a clearly better squad than probably maybe at least 4 or 5 teams in the league. I think definitely the bottom three, and then maybe a couple of others, because they have invested in the last couple of seasons. They've had Premier League football for a while now,
yeah,
for a few seasons. So yeah, they've got a decent squad, and I think the manager's good, and he's changed them structurally. He's got them playing a style of football that is sustainable in terms of success. But to actually push into like consistent top 10 finishes and stuff like that will depend on their transfers. But yeah, I think more or less it suggests a sustainable improvement in the level. I think.
yeah. That's fair
Um,
enough.
yeah.
What's the next game?
Spurs Everton.
Oh yes, um,
Oh yes.
the Kryptonite potentially.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I've got my anti Spurs thing already brewing,
Yeah,
predicting. I can feel Everton prediction coming on, but I don't know if it's actually smart.
yeah.
Uh,
It's a tough one to go for because they're two teams that you know are on relatively good form, especially Everton.
yeah, two
But
good
it's
teams. To be
it's
fair.
just Spurs have been they've had a mixed bag at home. To be fair, this season Spurs, but as we saw against Newcastle, when they do turn it on, it is hard to beat them. So I could see potentially a draw in this one. To be fair, I think I'll go two
I
two.
can. I was gonna go. I'm gonna go 2-2 as well. Not gonna lie.
Oh, fair enough.
Just got
Double
it.
Desmond.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's, yeah. Everton. I can see Everton scoring, and they're the kind of team who, like we touched upon already, that they're physical and they'll look to disrupt Spurs, who can be quite shaky at the back and in
Mm,
midfield stuff. Everton are like mentally really tough, and they'll make it very difficult. But then Spurs are just a really really good team, and really hard to stop scoring and stuff like
yeah, I think
that.
the reason Everton do so well wherever they go, whether it's home or away, is because they're always solid defensively. They're just very well drilled, very
Yeah,
good structure. So whether they're home or away, it's going to be hard to score against them. Secondly, their midfield is very combative and full of energy.
that's the
Now,
thing. It's the disruption I'm seeing throwing Spurs off is that
yeah,
midfield will just be disruptive.
yeah, their midfield's almost entirely just there to disrupt. With Anana, even uh,
Yeah,
Garner
yeah, yeah. I
Gay,
mean, yeah,
Decoure. Decoure has that goal scoring aspect to him as well, but fundamentally he's a box to box
he's a very combative midfielder, isn't he?
engine combative midfielder. Um, so there's that aspect of it. That probably performs better at home than it does away, but fundamentally, because it's more about being a disruptor and not necessarily this creative force, it does tend to um, withstand the kind of dips that you tend to get away from home. And then with their forward line, I don't think they necessarily have a particular style of play. I think they just look to exploit weaknesses of their opponents from a defensive aspect. So I can see them making mincemeat of potentially Ben Davis or that high line in some way. But they might not necessarily score from it every time, but I think they'll just make it look quite vulnerable. Um,
Yeah, I mean they've got good wingers, haven't they, Everton? Spurs play with
well,
really attacking fullbacks, so you think there might be some spaces there that they'll look to exploit in terms of their wingers, and then Spurs have still got a bit of a problem at the centre back, and I think Decore might be injured. I think he's a doubt.
okay,
But either way, they'll play Calvert Lewin. They'll try and get a midfielder.
Beto's
Onana
been
might
scoring.
take the Doucouré role and get in the box. And yeah, if they can exploit wide spaces and get crosses into the box with the problem Spurs have at centre back. If Everton have got Calvert Lewin or Doucouré or Onana in the box, against those centre backs, it's going to cause problems for sure.
Yeah, I think if Beto is playing as well, he's been looking better and
Yeah,
better.
Beto's a big striker. Yeah,
He's huge. He's so physical. I just don't think Ben Davis will have enough to handle him. Um,
yeah, exciting game.
yeah,
I'm gonna another one interesting to see how that'll go. And then we got Liverpool next. Pwah.
Liverpool. Who do they play?
Arsenal, sorry.
Oh yes. Oh, I should have known that. Yeah, been thinking about this game. I mean, you gotta want the draw, really, from our perspective as Villa
Absolutely. I mean,
fans.
if we can beat Sheffield United and they draw,
Yeah, that's the ideal
yeah, very
situation, isn't
Merry
it?
Christmas.
Yeah, be a great Christmas. Be the only gift I need. But is that actually going to happen? That's hard to say. Anfield was a bit off against United, but at the same time, they did put in a performance where you would have expected them to score at least 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah.
Arsenal are obviously better defensively, and as I spoke about earlier in the pod, they do have that ability to just control the ball and calm the game down. And if they can do that in a busy Anfield, uh, even if the audience and the crowd are in full voice and at full strength, they can calm that down. And they did draw there last year, and I think that was at a point where Liverpool were starting to pick things up. So it's not necessarily that dissimilar to where we are this season. Of course, Liverpool have been playing more consistently at a better and higher level from the very start. But in terms of, at their best, what they've been this season, I don't think it's much further ahead, if at all further ahead of what their best was at the end of last season.
No, probably
Um,
not.
so I can see another draw. I could even see an Arsenal win, to be fair. But I think it's safer to go with a draw. I think we're probably looking, based on more recent results and the lack of high scoring games as much this season compared to last with Arsenal and Liverpool. I think 1-1's a pretty tempting result to go for, potentially even 0-0, but I don't see it being that sort of dead in terms of like clinicality and things like that. Because at the end of the day, Arsenal have got far more rehearsed attacking sequences and far more clinical forward line than United have at the moment. So if they do get chances, I back them to score.
Yeah, it's almost like there's too many good players on the pitch for it to be a nil-nil, isn't it?
Yeah,
Obviously
but
not that, you do get nil-nils in big games like this, but um,
yeah, it
yeah,
was
I'm
2-2
kind of
last year, but I'm
I'm
going
leaning
1-1.
towards uh, a cagey kind of game. I think 1-0 Arsenal is a very good shout.
Yeah,
Yeah, 0-0. I think there's they've both got too much in attack, but 1-1 could definitely be a good shout. It's pretty tough. I think I was initially going 1-0 Arsenal, but then um, Liverpool did create a lot against Man United. Obviously, Arsenal are a much better team than Man United, but Liverpool at Anfield, for them to not score is quite a bold prediction, I think, to be fair, because they usually do, and they've got a ton of good players. Um, it's
yeah. It's
really
now
tough.
it's now only Villa and Atletico after that Liverpool United result that actually have 100% records at home now. So
There we go.
yeah, they have dropped off slightly with that result. I think it was a bit of a freak result though, because so much media around that game about what it represents as like a bit of a reference test for United in terms of how far they've come from that 7-0 loss. I think that put more pressure on Liverpool to win this game. The fact that it's such a huge rivalry as well.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a bit of a one-off fixture. Liverpool United. It's
yeah,
always is that way. And on another day, if you replayed that fixture, Liverpool probably score. To be fair, it
yeah,
was one
they
of those
probably should
games
have
where
won
they
3
did
0
create enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
What are you going for?
I'm going to go 1-1.
After all that, he's just copied me.
I'm going to go 1-1. Villa need the draw. They're both good teams. Liverpool at home got the home advantage. Arsenal probably better team, but the home advantage balance it out. It just screams 1-1, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, I suppose. Screams it. Took you five
Yeah, it
minutes to get there, though.
might be a bit strong. Yeah, it whispered it in my ear.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got all that. I mean, is it worth evaluating what the table looks like at that point before we do our quickfire Boxing Day predictions?
Well, we could do the last fixture first if you wanted.
Oh, is there another fixture? Oh,
Yeah, Wolves at home to Chelsea.
oh okay. Okay. Ooh, what an interesting game. It's a
Yeah, this
shame
is this is
Wolves
a
are going to
Christmas
win
Eve.
it 2-0.
2-0 Wolves.
Yeah,
Straight in.
yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Is that because Pochettino is going to be hungover from his wedding anniversary?
Purely.
Yeah. 2-0 Wolves. You throw me off with the pace of that. Flustered. I
What can I
feel
say?
like I've got to match the
When they get
pace,
flustered, just stay calm and they'll get worse.
Stay calm. Yeah.
Oh, the meditation. I saw that.
I don't know. I'm completely flustered, man. I've absolutely
Yeah.
lost it. I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea for no
Ooh,
particular reason.
I think that's self-sabotage.
Probably. I always have one result a week at least, which is just stupid and inevitably loses me points.
Well, I
And I
mean,
know
I've
that
done
it's
that.
a prediction, but it's got to happen.
Fair enough. I mean, there is always a result each week that defies logic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that is it's quite a hard game to predict really. If you try and think hard about how it's going to go, it could go a number of ways. It's two
Well,
inconsistent
I,
teams.
I, I saw two glaringly obvious facts about this game when I first thought about it, and that's that Chelsea are extremely poor in front of goal. So even if they create like 3 xg, they'll probably score maximum 1 out of that, especially away from home. Wolves is a particularly tough place to go, and they love to sit back and defend and then carry the ball through the channels through players like Cunha and Neto and Huang, which I
Yeah, I could see that.
just think will split Chelsea apart on a couple of occasions, and yeah,
I
they'll
mean,
lose it.
Wolves got that result against Spurs. Spurs are obviously a much better team than Chelsea, but in terms of how they play and control the ball and the fullbacks sitting high up the pitch and stuff, you can see similarities in the kind of shape and system there.
Yeah,
And Wolves exploited that really well. So perhaps a similarity, but to a better, obviously, Chelsea are much worse than Spurs. So yeah, I can see that. But I've gone for Chelsea win. So who knows?
yeah.
Um, right, quick fire.
Right, quick fire. I don't have the fixtures up in front of me, so I guess. Do you just want to ask me, or
Well,
I don't know?
I do. Yeah, yeah. I'll just reel for it. So Boxing Day, first game, Newcastle Forest.
Are we doing? Are you doing it as like home team first? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say home team first. Yeah.
3-1 Newcastle.
Okay, I'll go 2-1 Newcastle. Bournemouth Fulham.
Oh, this is the game I really wanted to watch. Shit. 2-1 Bournemouth. Oh no, I could go.
Ooh.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't. Oh, damn it! This is why quickfire is so interesting. Man.
Oh, brilliant. I'm going to go 2-1 Bournemouth as well.
Okay.
Sheffield United Luton.
Oh. Oh. Shit.
I'm going Sheffield United win here. I'm
I'm
going
gonna go 1-1 draw.
2-0.
1-1 draw.
1-1. Okay. Burnley at home to Liverpool.
Um. 3-1 Liverpool.
Yeah, fair. I'll go 3-0. Man United Villa.
Scary.
Could do a
2-1.
little
2-1 Villa. 2-1 Villa.
quick fire analysis if you want.
No, 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 no. There's no such thing as quickfire analysis.
Okay. 2-1 Villa.
Yeah, I'll go 2-1 Villa.
2-1. That's a good shout. Tough one. Maybe I'll go another 1-0.
To who?
You know who? Come on now.
Okay. I was going to
1-0
say,
Villa.
have we predicted Villa
Brentford.
to lose yet this year? I
No,
don't
we
think
haven't. Yeah, the title. If all our predictions were always right, the title would be very favourable, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Brentford Wolves.
Oh my god. Um, Ooh, what a gross game. 3-2 Brentford.
3-2. There he is. Um,
Yep.
I'll go 2-1 Brentford.
Sorry, I thought I would get away without doing that.
Chelsea Palace.
Chelsea Palace. Oh shit. Um,
A tricky fixture. You're literally choking on it.
Desmond.
Oh, Desmond.
Jesus.
Desmond's a good shout. I'm going to go 2-1 Palace. Fuck it.
Oh.
Everton at home to City. Interesting.
3-1 Everton.
Whoa. Nice.
This is what quickfire does to me, man.
Whoa. 3-3.
Oh my word. No, you're just insane. That's way too far.
No, it's not. Ashley Young hat trick.
Oh god.
Guaranteed. Brighton Spurs. This is a crazy game.
Um, yeah, you're right. But I think it'll be 1-1.
I'm going 2-1 Spurs. And finally, Arsenal at home to West Ham.
Oh, do you know what? I've just realised I haven't taken into account any of my predictions for this weekend's fixtures for any of these.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Shit. What was the game again?
Arsenal West Ham.
Arsenal West Ham. Right. Um, 2-1 Arsenal.
Okay, I'll go 2-0 Arsenal. Right. 2-1. So that's the quick fire. What would the table be doing
Well, should we
if
should we,
these all
should we go
happened?
through those and say if it wasn't quickfire, I probably wouldn't have gone 2-1 Bournemouth.
What would you say for that if you tried to think about that one a little harder?
Well, immediately after I started thinking Desmond. But 2-1's not an
Yeah.
unreasonable shout.
No, I think Fulham being away and them being inconsistent, I think does sway it in Bournemouth's favour a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that is a really hard one to call. To be fair, could go either way.
Yeah, it's an exciting game. That.
Yeah, I think mine are sort of generally all right. There's a few weird, like Chelsea Palace is one of those where you kind of need to think about it because
The
there's
thing,
no obvious kind
yeah,
of
I think that the
outcome.
thing with that Bournemouth Fulham game is it's pure football because you've got two teams who are capable of being quite defensive, but also capable of playing quite good attacking football in terms of build up or breakaway attacks. Mostly build up. They both teams have got a few technical individuals. They've both got a couple of clinical players, some players who can score screamers, etc. And there's nothing greater on the line to distract them from just imposing their style of play and trying to
Yeah,
play
true. There's
football.
no, there's not a massive kind of mental element, is there? There's no,
Yeah,
there's not really particularly
it's not
pressure on
like
either
they're
team or
both competing for top four or there's a ton of pressure on this game.
yeah.
It's just a game, if you know what I mean. And to
It's like
have
a
two
game on
teams
paper,
that
isn't it? It's
yeah
like
that are so fun to watch on their day, it could be an incredible fixture to watch.
well,
Game of the season, maybe.
well. Are you going to be watching Boxing Day football?
I hope so. If I haven't
So
died.
you'll go for that game. I mean, to be fair, there's two 3 o'clock games Boxing Day, Bournemouth Fulham and Sheffield United Luton, which are both quite interesting fixtures.
Well, we
Obviously
obviously
Bournemouth
can't
Fulham.
watch them because there's no football at 3 o'clock on TV. Man,
Well, you can find a stream,
uh,
can't you?
we're not illegals. We don't do that.
Yeah, I mean they're both Bournemouth Fulham obviously more fun, but Sheffield United Luton's a lot more at stake. It feels like.
Yeah, there's far more egos on the line there. There's far more um, kind of status to be gained from winning that. So there will be
Yeah,
more at play than just okay. How do we play football today?
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall, looking at that, I mean, we can quickly go through how that might affect the table again. If Arsenal win, oh god, it's harder to do when you can't see the updated table.
Well, we'd still be top because we both went Villa win.
Yeah,
Arsenal, we both went Arsenal win. We both went Liverpool win. So the top three would stay the same.
yeah.
City,
I predicted them to lose.
you went lose. I went 3-3 draw. So I think they're up there with Spurs.
Well,
I went Spurs.
Spurs would be ahead of them for me.
Spurs would go ahead for me because Spurs would win.
Yeah,
They go ahead for you as well with the draw.
yeah. Because
Spurs
I've
draw.
got them drawing with Everton, and that obviously puts
Spurs
them
winning this week.
level because City don't play a game, and then if
Oh yeah.
they draw again, they then go a point ahead. Um,
So yeah,
Newcastle,
Newcastle would gain 3 points.
yeah, which would put them back ahead of West Ham and United. If
We've both gone for a loss.
yeah, Brighton against Crystal Palace, I've got them losing. So when they get a point for a potential draw against Spurs, that would leave them still behind United. But if they win, like in your case, for example, then United would drop to ninth, um, and Brighton would move up to eighth. Chelsea, I've got them drawing. That doesn't change their position much, I don't think.
No, you've got you've got Everton win, which would put them that would move them up a couple places potentially, would
Everton, well, what did I have for them against Spurs? It's draw up to 17. They'd be on 20 points, but with Brentford winning, they would be 22 points. Same, Chelsea would be on 23 points. Fulham, if they lose, hang on, who are Fulham playing this week? I forget.
it? Burnley.
Yeah, if they win that, then they're on 24 points, and they're okay. So no, I think Everton could potentially move up to maybe like 14th, 13th, but I don't see them moving too far because I see other teams around them getting results as well.
Yeah,
Um, if Luton do beat Sheffield, and in my book beat Newcastle, they could be within a couple points of Forest. Uh,
yeah, that makes that a bit interesting. There's still a bit of a gap between that bottom three, but yeah, if Luton's results go how we've predicted them, um, they're still in the kind of
they'd be two
in
points
touching
behind
distance.
Nottingham Forest, yeah. Well, because if Forest get a win and a loss, as I've predicted at least, that would put Forest on
Yeah.
17 points. And then if Luton do get two wins, which is a big ask, but if they do it and get to that
I
15
mean,
points, then yeah, they're 2 points behind. So
yeah, and it's not out of. I mean, they've got Newcastle at home, which we've both gone a win for, which would be a great win. It's
yeah,
certainly possible. And then they've got Sheffield United, where anything could happen.
yeah,
So they could with a couple good results, Luton could actually put themselves in a really good position and really make
and
uh,
certainly
a decent
give
gap.
give their owners good reason to try and invest a little more in the January transfer window. It's like at the start of the season, they probably assumed they were going to be going back down, so they didn't. They thought, yeah, we'll invest a bit, but we won't go crazy. And
Yeah, I
if
mean,
they
yeah,
were,
when it looks like you've got genuine prospects of
yeah,
surviving, and that there's a few teams, or at least two teams, who are definitely worse than you, yeah, does give you something to think about in terms of, yeah, because obviously staying in the league is just such a massive boost to the kind of squad you can build and your general progression as a club. Uh, yeah, if halfway through you're looking like you could actually do it, it does kind of change your mindset, doesn't it, in
yeah.
January?
I don't like again. I don't think they'd go crazy. I think they'd make probably two sort of 7 to 15 million pound signings. You'd probably see one out of
Yeah,
League and maybe one out of the Championship. You might see someone like I don't know who's that Blackburn striker who's doing well. They might bring him in or
oh yeah, us teams were linked with him. Is it
Freddie.
Brahim Diaz?
What? Brahim Diaz.
Who's that? Is
Brahim
that Real
Diaz
Madrid?
plays for Real Madrid, mate. What are you talking about? Do you mean Ben Brereton Diaz,
Diaz?
who plays for Villarreal?
Oh, Brereton Diaz.
Yeah,
He went to Villarreal.
yeah. Well, we've been linked. Well, we haven't been linked with him. Some idiot pundit was like, "Yeah, he'd do well at Villa, despite he scoring no goals this year at all." But no, it's
Uh,
Freddie Smedics or something like that playing for I think Blackburn, he's been really productive in the Championship. Like that, maybe they could go and
I
get
don't
him.
know.
Um,
Yeah, I mean that would be the
Something like
ideal
that.
signing for them. Would be a striker who is on good form, clearly got some talent. Um, yeah, because
Another
they
midfield
still do.
operator, maybe.
Yeah,
I think if they went to
um,
Liga and got an exciting young French winger or attacking midfielder for like 7 to 15 million quid, who's showing promise but hasn't had a long enough career yet to demand a big fee, that could be a real coup for them. And even if they then go down, they could, if that player just shows an ounce of talent in the Premier League in his few appearances, they could probably then sell him on for 20 plus,
yeah. I mean,
or
then
be a
they're not
very
a
good
risk-taking
Championship
club,
player.
are they?
Yeah, well, I don't think
Um,
that's necessarily a huge risk because the relative outlay that would be in terms of the current football market is about as much as good academy players are going for at the moment. So if that's not
yeah, well,
a
that's
good,
the thing. You just need
yeah,
to make sure it's a player who you can sell on, even if you go down. But like you say, you do find those players who are out of Liga or whatever, who you can get for a good fee, but have clearly got talent. They just need to be in the right environment.
yeah. Well, because you might say Luton's not the right environment because the style of football they play and the kind of culture there and everything. You might say, well, is a young French talent really going to find that an attractive place to go? But the thing is, if you get a
Yeah,
young French talent in there, they can be a bit of a maverick for that side. You know,
yeah,
you
exactly.
can kind of
Yeah.
give them that free reign to just do what they want and show off.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of like no. There's almost a no lose situation. If you can get a player with talent for say 10 million, they either don't really do much. You get relegated, and then you sell them for 10 million again or 15, whatever. Or they have got that potential to be a player who can win you games that you would have lost otherwise or drawn otherwise or whatever. Um, so yeah, yeah, I wouldn't mind. I'd like to see Luton make a really good, exciting signing because it would. They're kind of a interesting team to watch anyway, just because they're really well coached and they're getting these results that nobody was really expecting them to be as competent as they are really. But with a kind of with a spicy attacking signing, a creative player, it'd be fun to see what they could do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't their coach quite young? Is he in his 40s? Is he? Maybe?
He's quite young. He's from Telford.
Is he? Ah,
Yeah,
bloody hell.
he played for Villa
Did he actually?
years and years ago. He's a Midlands guy. Um, yeah, he's born in Telford. But yeah,
Cool.
he's 40 or 39 or something like that.
Fair play. He's doing a good job. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up there. Thanks for going an hour and a half. To be fair, we've covered a couple game weeks. So yeah, it can be a bit of a longer episode this week. We don't mind that. But yeah, for anyone who's still watching or just about to click off, like and subscribe, and yeah, you'll get to see more of this bullshit. I mean, just the fact you clicked on the video because you saw our two faces, right? Means you like seeing our faces. So if you subscribe, you'll see our faces pop up on your screen more. So even if you don't want to watch the videos, at least you get to see our faces.